When society collapses, people cluster. Survival alone is possible but difficult. Survival in groups multiplies capability. More skills, more security, more labor capacity. So people form groups always. Across every historical collapse, people organize into collectives because groups survive better than individuals. But not all groups survive equally. 5 specific group types form in every collapse: different structures, different values, different strategies, and 4 of them fail catastrophically while one succeeds. Understanding which groups form, why they form, and which one actually makes it isn't academic. It's life or death because you will either form a group, join a group, or interact with groups. Your survival depends on recognizing which group type you're dealing with and whether that group has a future or is doomed. The group that survives isn't the one most people expect. It's not the most armed, not the most prepared, not the most organized by traditional metrics. The survivors understand something about group dynamics that the failures don't. Something counterintuitive. Something that goes against every prepper instinct and every movie about post-apocalyptic survival. Here are the 5 groups that form in every collapse. What they look like, why they form, what kills 4 of them, and which one survives when all the others have failed. Group 1, the tactical militia. Heavy weapons, heavy casualties. This is the group preppers dream about. Former military, law enforcement, and tactical enthusiasts forming a paramilitary organization. Heavy weapons, rigid hierarchy, military-style operations. The group that looks the most capable on day one. What they look like. Leadership structure based on military rank. Someone's the commander. Others are subordinates. Chain of command is explicit. Orders flow down. Information flows up. Very organized on paper. Extensive weapons and tactical gear. AR-15s, body armor, night vision, communications equipment. They look like a professional military unit. Everyone's armed and equipped to similar standards. Fortified position as home base. They establish a compound. Defensive positions, overlapping fields of fire, hardened structures, military thinking applied to static defense, aggressive patrol and security operations. They run patrols. They establish perimeters. They control territory around their position. They project force to deter threats, training, and drills. They practice tactics. They run scenarios. They maintain discipline through structure and routine. They're preparing for violence they expect will define survival. Why they form? Tactical groups form because people with military or law enforcement backgrounds gravitate toward what they know. They're trained in hierarchical organizations. They're comfortable with chain of command. They default to military structure because that's their experience. They also attract people who romanticize tactical operations, the wannabe operators who see collapse as their chance to live out military fantasies. They join because they like the gear, the structure, the sense of being warriors. The tactical group offers immediate visible security. Heavy weapons and trained people make the group seem safe. Newcomers joining feel protected by the firepower and organization. Why they fail? Rigid hierarchy breaks under stress. Military hierarchy works when supported by institutional infrastructure. In collapse, when the commander makes bad decisions, subordinates can't override without breaking structure. Bad leadership kills the group while everyone followed orders. Resource consumption is unsustainable. Military operations consume ammunition, fuel, and supplies rapidly. Patrols burn fuel. Training uses ammunition. Equipment requires maintenance. The tactical group depletes resources faster than they can acquire them. They run dry while heavily armed. They create enemies through projection of force. Every time they run a patrol or establish control over territory, they're challenging others. They make enemies of other groups. They trigger conflict through visible strength. Eventually, they face overwhelming numbers or someone better armed. The aggressive posture that seemed like strength becomes the reason they're targeted. Internal conflict over tactics and strategy. The group attracts strong personalities who all think they know the right answer. When situations don't match their training, they argue about approach. Factions form. The group fractures over tactical disagreements that become personal conflicts. The military mindset applied to survival situations fails. Military operations have supply lines, reinforcements, and defined objectives. Collapse survival is indefinite duration with no resupply and no clear victory conditions. Tactical thinking doesn't map to survival reality. They're fighting wars they can't win because survival isn't warfare. Attrition through overconfidence. They believe their training and equipment make them superior. They take risks based on that belief. They engage threats they should avoid. Eventually, they lose people in firefights that weren't necessary. Each loss weakens the group. After enough losses, they can't maintain operations. Timeline to failure, 3 to 6 months. They burn through ammunition in the first months defending territory and running operations. They lose people to combat. Internal conflicts intensify as resources deplete. By 6 months, they've either collapsed into smaller fragments or been eliminated by accumulated enemies. Group 2, the Community Coalition. Democracy dies in darkness. This is the neighborhood watch that scales up. Neighbors who knew each other before collapse banding together to maintain order and share resources. They're trying to preserve pre-collapse social values, cooperation, fairness, democratic decision-making. What they look like: inclusive membership. Anyone from the neighborhood can join. There are meetings where everyone votes on decisions. Leadership rotates or is elected. Very egalitarian structure, resource sharing, food, water, skills are pooled. They establish communal gardens, water collection, security rotations. Everyone contributes what they can. Distribution aims for fairness, defensive posture, not aggressive. They establish a perimeter around their neighborhood. They defend but don't patrol beyond their area. They're not looking for conflict. Attempt to maintain pre-collapse norms. They have rules. No stealing from each other. No violence within the group. Disputes are mediated. They're trying to keep civilization alive through social contract. Why they form? Community coalitions form because humans naturally trust people they already know. Neighbors band together because they have established relationships. They know each other's names, their families, their histories. Pre-existing social bonds create the foundation. They also form from desire to maintain normalcy. People want to believe their neighborhood can stay civilized, that cooperation and fairness will work. They're clinging to pre-collapse values because accepting those values are dead is psychologically devastating. The community group seems right morally. It feels good to cooperate, to share, to help neighbors. This moral appeal attracts people who want to be good people even in collapse. Why they fail? Free riders destroy the system. Some members contribute less than they take. They skip security shifts. They eat more than their share. They fake sickness to avoid work. The cooperative system depends on everyone contributing fairly. When some don't, resentment builds. Eventually, the contributors refuse to keep supporting the free riders. The system collapses from internal unfairness. Democratic decision-making is too slow. Emergencies require fast decisions. When the group needs to decide whether to evacuate, whether to let strangers join, whether to use force against threats, they hold meetings. They debate. They vote. By the time they decide, the situation has evolved. Opportunities are missed. Threats aren't addressed quickly enough. Democracy can't respond to fast-changing crisis conditions. Inclusivity becomes a security vulnerability. They let anyone from the neighborhood join. Some people shouldn't be in the group. Some are liabilities, sick, injured, unwilling to work. Some are threats, criminals, mentally unstable, violent. The inclusive policy means they can't exclude dangerous or useless members without violating their own values. The group is weakened by including everyone. They attract predators. A cooperative, peaceful group with shared resources is an ideal target. Gangs see the community coalition as a stockpile. They attack with overwhelming force. The community tries to defend, but they're not equipped or trained for violence. They're overrun and their resources are taken. Internal conflicts over fairness are unresolvable. Someone thinks food distribution is unfair. Someone else thinks another family isn't contributing enough. These disputes consume endless time in meetings. Factions form around different visions of fairness. Eventually, the group fragments as people leave to form smaller groups with those who share their values. The social contract breaks when resources get truly scarce. When there's plenty, sharing is easy. When food is running out and people are starving, the parents with children look at single people without kids and think, Why should they eat when my children are hungry? The fairness system collapses when stakes become life and death. People prioritize their families over the group. The coalition dissolves. Timeline to failure, 2 to 4 months. Free rider problems appear immediately, but take weeks to create serious conflict. Resource depletion accelerates division. By 2 to 3 months, internal conflicts are consuming more energy than external survival challenges. The group fragments or is targeted by predators who recognize their vulnerability. Group 3, the family clan. Blood runs thick and shallow. This is extended family clustering, parents, siblings, cousins, all consolidating to one location. Blood ties as the foundation, often a patriarch or matriarch as the leader, intense loyalty within the family, deep distrust of outsiders. What they look like. Family structure as organizational structure. The father or grandfather leads. Adult children are lieutenants. Grandchildren are labor. Authority flows from family position, not capability. Insular and suspicious. They don't trust outsiders. They don't trade or interact with other groups unless necessary. They assume everyone outside the family is a threat. Resource hoarding. Everything the family has is for family only. They don't share with others. They accumulate and protect what's theirs. Defensive positions on family property. They fortify the family home or compound. They defend what's theirs. They don't expand beyond their land. Why they form? Family clans form because blood ties are the deepest trust. You trust family in ways you don't trust anyone else. When the world collapses, you turn to family because that's the most reliable loyalty. They also form because families have existing relationships and dynamics. No need to establish hierarchy or build trust. It's already there. They're operationalizing pre-existing bonds. Geographic consolidation is natural. Family members live in different houses but same region. When collapse comes, they converge on one location, usually the patriarch's house or whoever has the most defensible property. Why they fail? Limited genetic and skill diversity. Everyone's related. The skills available are whatever skills family members happen to have. Often there are gaps. No one knows medical care. No one can fix engines. The clan can't cover all necessary capabilities because they're limited to family members' skill sets. Inbreeding of bad ideas. Family group dynamics means certain ideas or values dominate. If the patriarch makes bad decisions, no one challenges effectively because of family respect or fear dynamics. The group doubles down on bad strategies because family loyalty prevents necessary course corrections. Inability to grow or adapt. They can't recruit. They can't add skills they lack. They're stuck with who they have. If they lose someone, they can't replace them. Attrition kills them slowly because they refuse to bring in outsiders. Family conflicts become survival conflicts. Pre-existing family tensions explode under stress. Old resentments surface. The brother who always felt disrespected. The sister who thinks she should lead instead of dad. The cousin who never contributed and still doesn't. These personal conflicts escalate to fracture points. The family group dissolves because they're fighting each other instead of external threats. The patriarch-matriarch leadership problem. Leadership based on family position, not capability. When dad or grandpa makes bad decisions, the family structure doesn't allow challenging them effectively. Bad leadership combined with loyalty structure means the group follows bad decisions until they fail catastrophically. Distrust of outsiders limits opportunities. They could trade for food they need. They could ally with another group for security. They could recruit someone with critical skills. They don't because they don't trust anyone outside family. This isolation means they miss opportunities that could save them and face threats alone that they could have faced collectively with allies. Timeline to failure, 4 to 8 months. Family clans last longer than tactical groups or community coalitions because loyalty is real and internal trust is high. But skill gaps and inability to adapt eventually create situations they can't solve. They're stable internally but can't respond to external changes. When circumstances require something they're not capable of, they fail because they won't bring in help. Group 4, the Raider Gang. Take everything, leave nothing. This is the predator group. They don't produce, they take. They target other groups, attack, steal resources, and move on. Pure parasitic survival strategy. What they look like, mobile and aggressive. They're not defending territory, they're ranging through areas, attacking targets, and taking what they want. Heavily armed, but not disciplined. They have weapons, they use them, but they're not military. They're violent opportunists. Loose hierarchy based on strength. Whoever's most violent and successful leads. Leadership changes through conflict. It's unstable and brutal. No long-term planning. They think about the next raid, where they'll hit next, what they'll take. They don't plan months ahead because they don't think months ahead. Why they form? Raider gangs form from criminal elements and people who choose violence as primary strategy. When law enforcement collapses, people with criminal backgrounds or violent tendencies gravitate to groups where those traits are advantages. They also attract people who failed at other survival strategies. People who couldn't produce their own food, couldn't build their own shelter, couldn't organize their own defense. They join raiders because taking from others is easier than building their own capability. The raider strategy offers immediate rewards. Attack a weaker group, take their stuff. Fast resources without the work of producing or preparing. This attracts short-term thinkers. Why they fail? They consume resources faster than targets can regenerate. Raiders hit productive groups and take their supplies, but they don't leave those groups functional. They take everything. This means each target is destroyed and can't be raided again. Eventually, they run out of targets. All the productive groups in their range have been eliminated or fled. The raiders have nothing left to raid. They create a coalition of enemies. Every group they've hit or threatened becomes their enemy. Eventually, the surviving groups organize against the raiders. A coalition of defensive groups with common enemy is stronger than the raiders. The defensive alliance hunts the raiders systematically. The predators become prey. Internal violence destroys them from inside. Raider groups are held together by success. When raids succeed and resources are abundant, the group stays together. When raids fail or resources run low, they turn on each other. Leadership is challenged violently. The group fractures into smaller gangs or dissolves entirely. Attrition with no recruitment pipeline. Every raid risks casualties. They lose people to defensive fire. They lose people to injury and infection. They can't recruit effectively because no stable groups want to join raiders. Their numbers decline. Eventually, they're too small to successfully raid defended targets. No sustainable skills or production. They don't grow food. They don't purify water beyond looting. They don't build or maintain infrastructure. They're completely dependent on finding groups that do those things and taking from them. When those groups are gone, raiders have no capability to sustain themselves. Timeline to failure, 3 to 9 months. Early collapse offers many targets. Raiders do well initially because there are many unprepared groups to victimize. By 3 to 6 months, easy targets are gone. Surviving groups are defended. Raiders burn through their range and start failing. By 9 months, they're either dead, absorbed into other groups, or starved out. Group 5, the adaptive network. Loose bonds, strong survival. This is the group that survives. It doesn't look like a group in traditional sense. It's a network of individuals and small clusters who maintain flexible relationships. They cooperate when beneficial. They remain independent when advantageous. They adapt to changing circumstances without rigid structure. What they look like: distributed structure with no central authority. There's no leader of the network. There are respected individuals with expertise or resources, but no one commands. People make their own decisions and coordinate voluntarily. Small nodes of 2 to 5 people maximum. The network isn't one large group. It's many small groups or individuals who maintain contact and relationships. Each node is independent but connected. Specialized roles without hierarchy. Someone's the medical person, someone's the mechanic, someone's the farmer, someone's the trader. These roles aren't ranked. They're recognized for value. People defer to expertise in each domain. Flexible cooperation. Nodes work together on specific projects or challenges. Then they return to independence. The cooperation is project-based, not permanent integration. Information sharing network. The nodes communicate regularly. They share intelligence about threats, opportunities, resources, and conditions in different areas. Information flows freely. Why they form? Adaptive networks form from people who understand that rigid structures fail in chaos. They've watched the tactical groups, community coalitions, and family clans fail. They learned that flexibility beats structure in unpredictable environments. They also form from people who value independence but recognize the need for cooperation. They don't want to be alone, but they don't want to give up autonomy to a hierarchy. The network gives them both connection without control. Small node size occurs naturally. 2 to 5 people is manageable without formal structure. Everyone knows everyone. Trust is personal. Decisions are quick because there's few people involved. Larger groups require structure. Small groups don't. Why they survive? Flexibility adapts to changing conditions. When one approach fails, they switch. When a location becomes dangerous, they move. When a resource becomes scarce, they find alternatives. The lack of rigid structure means they're not locked into failing strategies. Distributed risk. If one node fails, the network persists. If one person dies, the network continues. There's no single point of failure, no leader to lose, no central base that can be destroyed. The network is resilient because it's distributed. Specialization without dependency. Each node has some capability, but nodes trade skills and resources with other nodes. The medical person trades medical care for food from the farmer. The mechanic repairs the trader's vehicle in exchange for scavenged parts. Everyone benefits from others' specialization without being completely dependent on any single person. Information advantage because nodes are distributed across geographic area and share intelligence. The network knows more than any single group. They see threats coming. They identify opportunities. They make better decisions because they have better information. Avoids all the failures of other groups. No rigid hierarchy to break. No democracy to slow decisions. No exclusive membership that limits skills. No aggressive posture that creates enemies. No parasitic strategy that depletes targets. The network deliberately avoids the failure patterns of other group types. Low visibility. The network doesn't look like a group to outsiders. No compound, no patrols, no obvious structure. Raiders don't recognize the network as a target. Other groups don't see the network as a threat. This invisibility provides security, can grow or shrink organically. If someone compatible appears, they can integrate into the network. If someone becomes a liability, they can be excluded. The network can contract during hard times and expand during better times. This flexibility in membership is impossible for rigid groups. Timeline to survival. Indefinite. The adaptive network doesn't have a failure timeline because it doesn't have the structural vulnerabilities other groups have. It can persist as long as members survive. Years, decades. It's the only group structure that's sustainable indefinitely. The common pattern why 4 groups fail and 1 survives. The 4 failing groups share characteristics that kill them. Rigid structure, tactical, community, and family groups all have defined structures that don't adapt well. Structure creates efficiency in stable environments. But collapse isn't stable. Rigid structures break under unpredictable pressure. Central points of failure. Each failing group has something that, if destroyed, kills the whole group. The tactical group's commander, the community coalition's shared resources, the family clan's patriarch, the raider gang's successful raids. When that central element fails, the group fails. Inward focus with blind spots. Tactical groups focus on security and miss resource sustainability. Community groups focus on fairness and miss security threats. Family clans focus on loyalty and miss skill gaps. Raiders focus on raids and miss long-term survival. Each group has a blind spot that eventually kills them. Inability to adapt to what collapse actually requires. Each group is optimized for what they think collapse is. Military operations, community cooperation, family protection, predatory raids. But actual collapse requires flexibility, diverse skills, sustainable production, and long-term thinking. Only the adaptive network is built for reality instead of expectation. The adaptive network survives because flexibility is its core principle. Everything about the network is designed to adapt. Membership, structure, strategy, location. When conditions change, the network changes. This is the opposite of rigid groups that break when conditions exceed their structural capacity. Distributed resilience, no central failure points. The network is robust through distribution. You'd have to eliminate every node to kill it. And nodes can regenerate through recruitment or reproduction over time. Reality-based instead of ideology-based. The network isn't trying to preserve military order, democratic values, family loyalty, or predatory success. It's trying to survive. Whatever works, they do. Whatever doesn't work, they stop. This pragmatism beats ideology every time. Long-term thinking built in because the network is sustainable. Members think long-term. They're not burning through resources. They're not making enemies unnecessarily. They're not depleting their range. They're building capability that persists years into the future. The counterintuitive truth. Everyone thinks the tactical group survives. They're armed. They're trained. They're organized. They look like winners. But looking capable isn't the same as being capable. The tactical group's strengths, weapons, structure, aggressive posture, become their weaknesses. They consume resources they can't replace. They create enemies they can't defeat. They follow leaders whose training doesn't match the situation. They die well-armed and organized. The adaptive network looks weak, loosely connected, no obvious hierarchy, not heavily armed, no impressive compound. They don't look like they'll make it. But looking weak while being strong is the ultimate survival position. The network doesn't attract predators. They don't trigger coalition enemies. They don't burn resources maintaining structure. They don't break when conditions change. They survive quietly while impressive groups collapse loudly. Which group are you in? Look at your own preparation or your community. What group pattern are you following? If you're building a tactical compound with military structure, you're heading for the 3 to 6 month failure window. Rigid hierarchy and resource consumption will kill you unless you transition to something more adaptive. If you're organizing neighborhood cooperation based on fairness and democracy, you're heading for the 2 to 4 month failure window. Free riders and slow decision-making will destroy you unless you create smaller, more accountable structures. If you're planning to survive with only family, you're stable for 4 to 8 months, but headed for eventual failure from skill gaps and isolation. You need to network with non-family or accept that you can't adapt when conditions require capabilities you don't have. If you're considering predatory survival, you're signing up for 3 to 9 months of initial success, followed by violent death when you've depleted your range and created a coalition of enemies. If you're not in a group yet, build the adaptive network, small trusted relationships, specialization in trade, information sharing, flexibility, independence with cooperation. That's the structure that lasts. How to build an adaptive network. Start with 2 or 4 people you deeply trust. This is your core node. Skills should be diverse. Trust must be absolute. Identify 3 to 5 other individuals or small groups in your area with different skills or resources. These become other nodes. You don't integrate with them. You establish relationships. Create regular information exchange. Meet periodically. Share what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what threats or opportunities exist. No formal structure, just information flow. Cooperate on specific projects that benefit everyone. Building defenses, sharing harvests, trading skills, project-based cooperation that doesn't require permanent integration. Keep node sizes small. When a node grows beyond 5 or 6 people, it splits into 2 nodes that remain connected. Small groups are manageable without hierarchy. Maintain independence while staying connected. You're not forming a compound or organization. You're maintaining relationships that provide mutual benefit without sacrificing autonomy. The bottom line, 5 groups form in every collapse. The tactical militia, the community coalition, the family clan, the raider gang, the adaptive network. 4 of them fail within 3 to 9 months. Rigid structures break. Central points fail. Blind spots kill them. Inability to adapt destroys them. One survives indefinitely. The adaptive network, flexible structure, distributed resilience, reality-based pragmatism, long-term thinking. The group everyone expects to survive. The heavily armed tactical group fails fast. The group nobody expects to survive. The loosely connected network persists indefinitely. Structure kills. Flexibility survives. Independence with cooperation beats hierarchy. Small, trusted groups trading with each other beats large, unified organizations. This isn't theory. This is the pattern from every historical collapse. The impressive organized groups fail. The flexible, adaptive networks persist every time. Build the network. Stay small. Stay flexible. Cooperate without integrating. Specialize in trade. Share information. Avoid rigid structure. That's how you survive when every other group has failed. If this analysis of group dynamics has changed the way you look at survival and community, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. We are digging into the historical patterns and strategies that others have tried to bury. Plant the seeds for a resilient future. The next vault of survival wisdom will open soon.